million in 2004 to more than $1 billion, generating fees for Stanford Group, ultimately for Stanford, of approximately $25 million in 2007 and 2008. This did not happen, Madam Speaker, prior to 2004. 2007 and 2008. The fraudulent SAS performance was used to recruit registered investment advisors with significant books of business who were then heavily incentivized to reallocate their clients' assets to SIB's CD program. The SEC's complaint charges violations of the anti-fraud provisions of the Securities Act of 1933, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, and the Investment Advisors Act and registration provisions of the Investment Company Act. Some of these pieces of US legislation, Madam Speaker, is more than 70 years old. They're not new. They were around when Alan Stanford operated in Antigua and Barbuda, when he made great economic strides in the public interest under the watch of the Antigua Labour Party. But, Madam Speaker, we are only hearing about them now because of the regulatory incompetence of the UPP. The regulatory incompetence of the UPP that is bringing unnecessary international shame and embarrassment to this country. It is the Regulatory Commission of the Financial Services Regulatory Authority that has the fiduciary duty and responsibility to regulate all offshore banks operating in our jurisdiction. It didn't happen prior to 2004. We were praised and commended by the US and British authorities after we cleaned up our act, after we were blacklisted and we came to Parliament and we passed watertight legislation. We became a model jurisdiction for offshore banking, Madam Speaker. But you see, once again, it's the same case with crime, same case with tourism, same case with Sailing Week. Simple matter of a cricket stadium, Madam Speaker, that they can't even get right. We see the unfortunate situation of what worked well, what was a model jurisdiction under the Antigua Labour Party. Madam Speaker, look at what has happened, Madam Speaker. It has become a nightmare. It has become a nightmare for the country thanks to the incompetence and vengefulness and spitefulness of the UPP. But let's go back to the SEC, Madam Speaker, and the allegations against Alan Stanford. In addition to the emergency and interim relief that has been obtained, the SEC seeks a final judgment, Madam Speaker, a final judgment permanently enjoining the defendants from future violations of the relevant provisions of the federal securities laws and ordering them to pay financial penalties and disgorgement of ill-gotten gains with pre-judgment interest. Madam Speaker, this matter, as the Attorney General very well knows, it is before a U.S. court. It is being heard on Monday of next week. The SEC recognizes, Madam Speaker, the SEC recognizes that relief obtained so far as emergency and interim. And they're waiting on the court for final judgment. But the same UPP that was clueless about whatever may have been going on right under their regulatory noses, stuffed with the tissue paper of mock justice, has all of a sudden become an expert authority on dealing with Stanford and handed down final judgment because Justin Simon is the law lords in the Privy Council or the Supreme Court of the United States, and he has finally handed down final judgment today.
Honorable Member, you know we do not use names in this House.
Pardon me, Madam Speaker? The Honorable Attorney General. The Honorable Attorney General, who believes that he is bigger than the U.S. Supreme Court. It's bigger than the OECS Appeal Court. Bigger than the Privy Council. And he has us here today. All of us here today. What he said, Madam Speaker? He's coming for me. Madam Speaker, he said he's coming for me, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, an act of violence? Is that a threat?
Take back what? I don't know what it means either. I see no threat in that. Maybe he's going to give you a ride home.
Madam Speaker, for 5 years, in all seriousness, because this is a very important day in the history, not just of the Parliament of this country, but in the Parliament of all the Westminster jurisdictions and democracies, what we are doing here today. Madam Speaker, they saw nothing for 5 years. They did nothing. My good friend, I have to say it, because it's true. His law firm, Court and Associates, represented Stanford for many years. He saw nothing. Up to now. Being retained.
25,000 years ago.
It's all hunky-dory, Madam Speaker. Now all of a sudden, out of blue, beautiful skies, we have this mad rush to cooperate with the U.S. authorities by doing, Madam Speaker, what not even the U.S. authorities themselves are prepared to do at this stage. That is the point. They are doing what not even the United States authorities are prepared to do at this stage. I'm not saying later down, but let the due process take place. If he's convicted, so be it. If there are criminal charges against him, so be it. But let due process take place. The civilized world, Madam Speaker, prides itself on the principle of innocent until proven guilty. At least in our jurisdiction, in our common law, which is 1,000 years old of jurisprudence. And he knows that. Criminal. But the Parliament of this country, Madam Speaker, of Antigua and Barbuda, the highest decision-making body in the land, is being asked today to strip Stanford of his assets. And forget about Stanford, because it could be you, it could be me, it could be you, it could be them. It's irrelevant that it's Sir Alan Stanford. But they are stripping him of his assets, suffocating local business operations, Madam Speaker, that have no legal connection to the United States action. None. Before a court of competent jurisdiction, which deliberates and decides on the charges against him. Not us. And let's forget, as I've said, Madam Speaker, the name Stanford. The principle is what we are dealing with here today. And I say, Madam Speaker, the principle is wrong. And they know it's wrong. You cannot use the power of the state to deprive anybody of property. It's enshrined in our Constitution. Even as they're waiting on a court to decide on the charges of misconduct that have been brought against them. A few days ago, Half Mumbai is a different situation. Oh God, learn and listen now. How you compare Half Mumbai to this? Half Mumbai, they was closed down. It was defunct. The workers were sent home. They were not paid.
You will not learn, eh?
You will never learn. You can really have the gall and gumption to compare Half Mumbai to this? If you were in my class, I'd give you